Welcome back. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco. We got so much to break down today with the markets and what's happening with the industrial military complex and how well those stocks are doing. But more importantly, the response and some of the responses from the State Department related to our actions against Soleimani and, of course, killing the #1 terrorist, in my view. And to break that all down, it's the executive editor of the American Conservative, Kelley Vlahos, joins us today. Frank and I are here. Kelley, welcome to Liquid Lunch. Hey, Kelley, how are you? Hey, hi, Kelley. We may be having a little technical difficulty there with Kelley. We'll come back to her in a minute. Frankie.
Meantime, if people missed what the president said earlier, why don't we play a portion of the president's remarks from earlier?
Yeah.
Continue to evaluate options in response to Iranian aggression. The United States will immediately impose additional punishing economic sanctions on the Iranian regime. These powerful sanctions will remain until Iran changes its behavior. In recent months alone, Iran has seized ships in international waters, fired an unprovoked strike on Saudi Arabia, and shot down 2 U.S. drones.
Hey, welcome back. So we're going to get to a whole bunch more clips, but, you know, I think, Frankie, that the president projected some real presidential stature and posture there. He didn't come out, you know, when we took out, you know, al-Baghdadi, he was talking about how he was crying and whimpering like a dog and all this other stuff. This time he was very measured and I thought very tempered.
Yeah, and I think this kind of presidential restraint when it comes to using military power, it's what diplomacy is all about. So I was listening to Colonel McGregor on another television or radio station earlier, and he said it was this speech that was going to tell whether or not that we actually got the president we voted for. And I think in many respects, we did.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, maybe he's finally finding his way. I'm always looking at how the left-wing media spins this stuff, and I just was watching that thing for any crack, Frankie, and I didn't see any. I can't see how they could really take issue with the way he addressed their retaliation, which to me wasn't much of a retaliation at all.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think that, you know, there were no American casualties. Iranian state TV did put out a statement, apparently we're told, that claimed 30 American servicemen were killed. We don't believe that that was true. But if it allows the Iranians to save face and go to their people and say, you see, look, we got back at the big bad United States.
That's fine.
Whatever they need to do.
That's fine. I mean, you're going to have a hard time, you know, hiding 30 dead American military members. So, I mean, if they needed a PR moment back at home, that's fine. But to dig into this even deeper, let's go to executive editor of the American Conservative, Kelley Vlahos, who joins us on Skype. Hey, Kelley. Hi, Kelley. How are you? Welcome.
I appreciate it.
Great to have you. Great job last night. I saw you on some competing network. But I know there's a whole bunch to talk about with the military-industrial complex and how a lot of stocks are really, you know, flying up now because they thought there was going to, I guess, be a worse thing. But what's your take on this and how the State Department has been dribbling out information?
Well, I just watched the president on his speech, and I feel like in terms of and when you say dribbling out information, you mean about the strikes last night or the repercussions from it?
Yeah, I mean, when they were talking about the imminent threat and what the new things were, it wasn't a really fulsome answer.
I totally agree. I watched all of our State Department and DOD officials yesterday in their explanations, and it dovetailed with the president just an hour ago in his speech. And it seems to me that they like to address the imminent threat for about 5 seconds before they move on to a history of Iranian hostilities against the United States as justification for the strikes and for the killing of General Soleimani. I don't think that the case has been made in terms of the imminent threat part, and I think they're very weak on that. I think there's been a lot of mixed messaging coming out of official Washington, out of the State Department and DoD about what gave them the authority, what the imminent threat was. We heard from Secretary of Defense, if not weeks. Well, I'm not sure that's imminent. I think the American people really deserve to hear what the case was.
I think, me personally, I think based off the response we saw, and the fear mongers on the left were talking about escalation, it's going to be so horrible. We did take out a guy with blood on his hands from that hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans. And in a recent piece you wrote, you talk about this hushed elation that we're hearing up and down the Eastern Corridor there. I think there's a hushed elation about Trump overall, but you say probably many people are feeling inside this is a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, I can't exaggerate enough how the war machine sort of reels into action when these things happen, whether they're big or small. You have an entire ecosystem here in Washington, D.C. that has been built around war, making war, endless war, and when these strikes happened, the 27th was the first strikes against our troops in northern Iraq. On the 29th was the first response, the 3 or the 5 targeted strikes in Iraq and Syria against Kataib Hezbollah. The minute those strikes happened, the military-industrial complex kicked into gear, and you saw the stocks for Raytheon and Northrop Grumman, all of our big War Inc. Daddies, I call them, the big 5. Their stocks started going up because this is their bread and butter. And it's not just the corporations and the shareholders, but it is the entire infrastructure here in the defense community and foreign policy community, the intelligence community. You have entire counties that are built up by people who work for the federal government. So this is the lifeblood of Washington. And it's really sad to say that in times like these, this is where all the action is. And I'm afraid that there is a gross incentive to stay in these wars, to not be skeptical or to resist aggressive responses to the Iranians or disproportionate responses, because there is such a win-win in Washington for the military-industrial complex for when we do take that course.
Kelley, first of all, I agree with everything you said, and I think that's the very definition of the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned about, or the deep state that a lot of Trump supporters warned about. When they're dictating policy that's at odds with what a lot of our elected policymakers are making, that's a big problem. But we have less than a minute left. I do want to ask you one thing based on what Secretary Esper said, Secretary Pompeo, and the president just a little while ago, that has not been made clear to me at all, is what meets the standard for American military intervention. If it's an imminent attack, how imminent is imminent? I mean, is that what we're now saying is the standard for an American military response? I mean, plus with no proof at all. I mean, it seems like weapons of mass destruction all over again.
Right, and that's it. They take this trust us tone that I think we are way beyond as Americans to even swallow. We saw it. We went to war in 2003 based on false pretenses. The just trust us attitude of the Bush administration. And where did it get us? Nearly 5,000 dead Americans in Iraq, tens of thousands of dead Iraqis, trillions of dollars. 30,000 at least casualties of our American soldiers. And so for us to ask, I don't think it's too much for us to ask, show us the money. When you tell us it's imminent, show us how imminent, lay out some details. They keep telling us it was imminent, but then this guy was a bad guy dating back to the Iraq War, and they took our hostages in 1979. I don't care about any of that, because that's all there whether we took out Soleimani or not. 4 days ago. I want to know what gave us the authority to go into a sovereign state and start picking off Iranian leaders. And I hope to God that there's members of Congress that will press them on this and not swallow everything that they're going to be delivering.
Amen.
Well, I hate to disagree with both of you, but I think, sometimes in war, the end justifies the means, and now we see their retaliation, and they're also asking to not have it escalated, and they don't want to go to war. Maybe the projection of some power at least made them take us seriously, which hadn't been happening in the U.S. for a while. I want to thank you so much for joining us, Kelley.
Thank you.
Check out the American Conservative. Kelley's take on things is amazing, and you are going to have an amazing show coming up right after this when super mom, super actress, director, producer Zen Sams joins us to talk about the Weinstein trial and the awards season and all these crazy loons in Hollywood using the awards ceremonies to pick up political platforms and all that good stuff. We're going to take a quick break, and we are also well armed in the studio today in case there are any new Iranian incursions. We'll be back right after this.